evening, everyone, and welcome back to The Doctor Will See You Now. Thank you, our regular viewers, for your patience. Whilst I've been grappling with a new job, we are wrangling the technology, as many of you know, but it's meaning that rather than being in the surgery once a week, I'm having to do it once every 2 weeks, but we will be back to normal service once I feel more confident with all that I'm needing to do. So, enough about me. We're here this evening to talk to an author that I've always wanted to talk to. And it's never really happened, and I don't know why. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome into the surgery author of a fabulous series that if you haven't read this series yet, viewer, reader, I know I say this a lot, but honestly, one heck of a character to get to know. So please welcome Valentina Giambanco. It's lovely to have you here. How are you?
Hi, Jackie. Very well. Wonderful to be here,
Yeah.
there virtually.
Yeah, yes. You see, this is the wonderful thing. Whilst, really frustrated that we can't be in the same space. And I don't know if anybody was watching the New Zealanders a week or so ago who were able to gather in person at a book
Really?
festival. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there were thousands of them, and it just seemed like another world.
Yeah.
So, whilst we you know, get the virus dealt with, we'll do it like this. And as I say, it's really good because we've been in the same space at various festivals and
Yes.
we've never had a chance to do
I
this.
know.
So thank you for agreeing to come on. And I know
Oh no, I
you
was
were meant to come
looking
to
forward to it.
Newcastle Noir, and of course that didn't happen, but you're here now. So I'm going to ask the question that I always ask authors, and it's, how did you get into writing? And why did it turn out to be crime fiction?
My background is film editing. So I was working in films and in post-production for many years. And, film editing is all about storytelling. And I was interested in writing since long before that. Um, it ended up being crime fiction just because crime fiction deals with humanity in all its sort of, let's say, moods, from happy to
Yeah.
murderous, and that makes for very interesting stories.
Mhm.
So I wasn't exactly sure what kind of crime fiction I was writing at the beginning. But then with Alice Madison, it turned out to be police procedural.
Mhm.
And I just think it gives it's a wonderful opportunity to meet all kinds of characters in all kinds of situations, and you move from very dark to humorous, and that's just something that it's not that you can do in every genre, but crime fiction is quite special about that.
And I must say, having begun to get to know your work, it certainly is dark. Hmm. But before we get into the nitty gritty of your writing, uh, I'm right in thinking that you were originally from Italy, yeah?
Oh, I am Italian, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And and so I wonder, um, you know, because I understand that you're not living in Italy at the minute, are you? You
Oh
live
no,
in
I've been a Londoner since 1986.
awesome. I love it. But I just wonder whether, because you write crime fiction, whether you read any Italian crime fiction, or do you not bother with that?
It's, you know, I wish I did more reading in Italian, and it's a real regret that I don't. It just so happens that, my to be read pile
Hmm.
from the
Hmm.
English books is at never ending. And I just don't get round
Hmm.
to reading the Italian authors, because also I think, I would want to read them in Italian.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to. I would love to do more of that for sure.
but just because, I mean, I would love to do a bit of a study, and this might sound weird, so go with me on
I am.
this. Yeah, but you know, because of one's origin, and all that cultural background that we have, I wonder, like if in your writing, you know, even though you write in English, that I wonder if there's a sense of Italianness, because having read some Italian authors, crime fiction writers, and you know, it's beautiful stuff. It's really rich, and I'm wondering whether you yourself would be able to, to find some of that there.
It's interesting because it's split. One, it's sort of linguistics, and one, it's sort of more cultural.
Mm.
So from the more cultural point of view, I don't know if you've noticed, but there is a big emphasis on food. I always talk about I mean, to me, it seems ridiculous that you don't know what people eat. So I will make sure that my characters eat properly and that you know what they eat, what
What
they
they're
like
having, yeah.
eating. If they cook, do they cook? It matters a lot. And also is the sort of the importance in Italian culture about relationships and closeness and family. So that is very, very important. Um, from from the point of view of linguistics, I've sort of helped to translate two of my books into Italian,
Mm.
and
Wow. Yeah.
that was a humbling and shocking experience because I then realized that I couldn't actually write them in Italian. So I'm very pleased that I write them in English because the wonderfulness of the English language is that it can be incredibly nuanced
Hmm.
just using 5 words. And in Italian, you use 25 to do the same
To do
thing.
the same thing, yeah.
Oh, so it really is absolutely fascinating. But it was quite a slog, and I was just helping the person who was actually translating. So and it absolutely fascinating, and the nuances of language is quite amazing. But uh, something that bugged me a little bit. I hope you don't mind if I just go on a little bit about this.
Please, this is what the
But
surgery is all about.
well, I was looking at translations. I started to read, things in translation. For example, I read The Silence of the Lambs in Italian just to see what it sounded like. And even at that level, you're talking about translating Thomas Harris. So,
Hmm.
there would have been a top translator working on that. But they mistranslated spook for speak. So a very famous early line is "Do you spook easily?" When her boss
Yeah, yeah,
sends
do
her
you
off to go
scare?
write
Yeah,
a letter,
yeah.
and it was translated "Do you speak easily?" And you kind of wonder, this is really amazing, the sort of the tiniest bit of difference obviously changes enormously. Um,
It's very encouraging though, in a way, that it's not just best selling. It's not just like when going to hotels and you see the way things have been translated, and there's some of the
yes,
the creative thing, but also best selling novels don't
I know,
necessarily. Yeah.
absolutely. It just it gave me a big smile actually.
Thank you for that. I remember that now. But to your writing, and I want to go just first of all, if we can, to where it all starts, or at least the series where it all starts with The Gift of Darkness. Now, I know there's a little prequel there, but the first novel to be published in 2013 was The Gift of Darkness. And I wonder, how long was that book germinating within you until it reached the shelves,
Oh God,
stores?
years.
Uh-huh.
Oh God, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because at that point I was still working in cutting rooms, working on films. So I would assume this sort of glassy-eyed expression as I was doing manually things with film, and that was because I was thinking about something, and the characters were built by layers. I mean, it really took a very long time because I was writing in between times, and I suppose it was. a very useful process, and I was very lucky to be able to do it that way, because for a series to have something that grows so organically,
Hmm.
it's it gives it a kind of depth and strength that if you're trying to set something up in 3 months, you're very likely not going to get.
Not to get it. Yeah.
Well, I was living with the characters for a long time before I got to the stage where I had a first draft and I could be quite surgical in how it needed to be cut.
Mhm.
But no, it was a long time.
And you've just said something that prompts me to ask you that because of your profession of working in the cutting room with your own work, can you exercise the same precision that you do with other people's film work?
Um, I think so. I absolutely love the editing phase. I know a lot of people don't, but I absolutely love it. Um, I I sort of I'm constantly polishing and re-editing as I'm writing. So I don't do just the big draft, big first draft, and then I reread it because I would completely tear my hair out. So I like to be in as good a place as I can be already when I finish the first draft. So everything is already in place. And then it's kind of fun because then you can play around with the blocks if you want to, and you kind of go, oh, what this needs at this point is a particular look in that he gives to her in that chapter, and then that would set up something that happens 10 chapters later. So yes, I can do a little reshoot
Mm,
and go back and drop it in, and it works. So
mm,
yeah, I love doing it. And also I hope that I'm not precious when it comes to collaborating with the editor
mhm.
and my agent, because um, working in films and in cutting rooms, you collaborate very much. I mean, obviously the
Yes.
director has the last word, but you don't go in there thinking, oh, I have made this cut and this is how it's going to stay until the end of time. So
Yeah, yeah, and again that experience in one form of creativity and how it plays out in your own very personal. Mm. Okay, so your series, as you say, is police procedural, and you introduce us to this homicide detective. I wonder before we get to the protagonist or protagonists, but I wonder before we do that, you set your stories in Seattle, is that right?
yeah.
Now, okay, so I am thinking, right, so from Italy, but in London, since the and yet set stories in Seattle. Now, Seattle's gorgeous, a fabulous city, but I feel a little bit like of all the cities in all the world,
Why?
why over there? What drew you to the Pacific Northwest?
um, I traveled there in 1991, and it was love at first sight. It was just a complete thunderbolt. And for me, it still has everything. It's right by the sea, right by the water. It's got mountains, snowy mountains behind it. It's very cosmopolitan, full of international influences of all kinds. The people are lovely. It was just absolutely wonderful, and it gave me a chance. And for me, it was very very important to have my characters go out into places that are wild. There's wilderness there.
Yeah.
There is, you can be on the water, but you can walk into the woods. And they are not like our polite, dainty woods here. They are proper woods. They've got bears over there. They've got glaciers. They've got, literally sort of life or death kind of
Mhm.
wilderness situations. And it was wonderful because then it's really effective sort of parallel in terms of the human soul, and you have
Mhm.
all this urban, very sophisticated, culturally advanced city, and then you've got those woods, and anything can happen in the woods.
Yeah. So, Valentina, which came first, your main protagonist or the setting?
The setting,
Yeah, and so
yeah,
she came out then
yeah,
of the setting. Yeah,
yeah.
you didn't have to sort of like place her in there and hope that she might fit in, but she's a product of
Oh
that
no,
space.
absolutely. She sort of grew up with that. It's so much a part of Madison, the
Mm,
environment.
mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so homicide detective Alice Madison. Now, um, imagine if you will, because I'm sure there's some people out there who, as yet, as I say, are in for a real treat. Imagine you'd brought her into the studio with you. Um, introduce us to her. Tell us what she's like. Um, tell us what it is that you are most proud of about this character that you've created.
Oh wow, you don't ask for much.
No, no, never. No, no, no.
um,
And I've got more to ask. So,
well, I must admit, probably the thing that I'm proudest of was where she was, where she when she started in the first book,
mm,
and the arc up to the fourth book, in terms of her relationships with the people she works with, her allies, her enemies, how we find out all the layers of her history and her personality, the things that matter to her, and how she goes about doing her job. That I think is what I'm proudest of, and that she really sort of grew up with the books.
because that's what I felt. This idea of 4 books on, and the trajectory, the distance travelled by this character. Um, and it's almost like, oh, is she the same woman as when she began? Where is she now, and what have life's experiences and some very hard experiences through. I'm going to say I think you're a bit of a cruel author, um, to your characters, but that's good. That's good. And then, and then into book 4. Now, book 4 is called Sweet After Death. And I was doing a little bit of research like you do. And it's sort of the layman's term for the vanilla leaf, the
Yes,
Aklis. Is that
it,
right? Is that
it
what?
is.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
because after you crush it, there is
Hmm.
a sweetness that comes.
Ah.
And so I thought, I'm going to put that in my pocket and I'm going to use it at some point. And it fitted the story and it fitted the book. So yes, that's where it comes from. Well found.
Because it just really caught, it caught my attention, and I have to be honest, I was putting the title into a search engine, and it threw that up for me, and I thought, oh, interesting. But I thought it was in quite interesting contrast to the titles before, where the gift of darkness, the dark, and then blood and bone, and they seemed quite, the darkness, the evil, the menace that's there. And yet this seemed to be slightly more subtle.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I
yeah.
mean, certainly if there would have been a change for Madison in these 4 books, but for me also, definitely, I think in terms of the balance also of darkness and light, um, with the fourth book, we have this situation where we have the three characters, Madison with Brown and Sorensen, and there is a lot of light in their relationships, and even though they find themselves in a very, very dark and dangerous situations. Between them, there is humor and there is kindness, and there is a great deal of affection. So it has certainly changed, even in the tone of the titles, and that's certainly well spotted.
Mm, mm. And as you've developed this series, have you become more comfortable with it? Are you more excited about it? I mean, I'm thinking like a relationship. And when you first get to know someone, it's all very exciting, and that can settle down sometimes. Just right in a way. Or do you still get excited at the thought of
Oh,
developing?
enormously, yes,
Yeah.
enormously, definitely, because there is a lot of space there still.
Mm,
And
mm,
there are some wonderful series, but there are situations where you see a character put in the same kind of situation book after book after book.
yes. Yeah.
They almost don't age,
Yeah.
and that's great, and it can work very, very well for some others. um, but I knew that with Madison, even though it's not exactly a sort of week by week, month by month, there would be an arc, there would be a change, and so things are not the same uh, from book to book. Definitely not the same. So it keeps it fresh, certainly for me, and I hope for the readers too.
Speaking of keeping it fresh, though, I wondered because I've read. I love it. It says that you live in London, but you commute to Seattle every day. How do you really? Did you? Well, I presume you can't now. But were you really flying on a daily basis back and forth?
No, not as such, but in my mind, yes,
Mm,
and that's as real as can be. Yes.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
been very tough, very, very tough in the last 4 years. And suddenly, miraculously, it's been a great relief over the last couple of days in terms of being
Really?
in the States. So,
Yeah.
yes, especially
Oh,
because,
I understand. Sorry.
yes,
Yeah, totally.
because Washington State has been traditionally a democratic state,
Yeah, yeah.
and I know they have suffered greatly
I, my,
in the last
I,
few years.
I totally understand you because I have a same love for its neighbor below for Oregon.
Of course, yes, same,
So yeah,
absolutely, very, very similar.
so exactly the same.
Yes, and
Um,
Portland in particular.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. May whatever whatever happens now, may it just be a time, I think, of truth and light and moving on
Oh,
for
yes.
everyone, for everyone.
Yeah.
But to come back to Alice Madison, I'm sorry, I can't not come back to her if you don't mind. And I wanted to ask you about your book covers. And I don't know to what extent you were allowed to choose them. Do you want to show us one? Have you? Yes, awesome. Now,
Love it.
for the four of them, because you're published by Quercus, are you
Yes.
not? Yeah, great. Lots of good authors out of Quercus. Have you always had the same graphic artist doing your book titles? Do you
No,
know?
that was very interesting because there was an evolution from the beginning, and this says as much about the books as about um, publishing and what was going on at that point. So, for example, at the beginning, I was VM Giambanco.
Mhm.
And then I think it was with the third book that I became Valentina Giambanco. And at the beginning, it was because they thought that male readers
Yeah.
would not read um, dark sort of thrillers if they were written by women, especially a completely unknown woman with a foreign sounding surname.
Mhm.
Um, but then things started to shift. And it was the same with the with the jacket design, because at the beginning it was sort of very stark. The one with the dark, the second book, had sort of rope and blood on the cover, and then we sort of found this beautiful, incredibly beautiful landscapes, which really reflected the tone of the story and the character and the colors. And I thought that they did an absolutely fantastic job. So I
mm,
really, really like them.
mm. And at least the covers that I was looking at, and I'm presuming it's Alice that appears on the cover. And even though she works with a team, on those covers she appears alone.
Yes, yes.
And then I started to do sort of like a little bit of, of an arty analysis. You can see my mind's been wandering, and I wondered, you know, is that really the case that this woman works with others? It's not a private detective. It's nothing like that. But really, she is somebody that there is something that keeps her, you know.
I think you really hit on something there. Because at the beginning, when I started to think about the character, I was thinking that if this was not crime fiction, she would be the kind of heroine who goes after dragons. She's a
Mm,
dragon slayer.
yeah, yeah.
And so there is this element of the person who goes against the predators and the warrior who goes against
Mhm,
these people who commit great evil.
mhm,
And she's alone in that. Of course, she has a team, she
mhm.
works with them, but there is also something quite lonely about it.
When I've been taking notes, and one of the little phrases that I've got here is that she's got nerves of steel. Yeah.
um, well, it's I I think that she does get afraid, but she also knows how to spur herself on.
Mm-hmm, hmm.
Um, you know, I've I've heard, there is no courage if there is no fear. So
Yeah,
for me, it
yeah.
was really, really important, and especially because in so many of the books, we see moments when she's a child or a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
In flashbacks,
Yeah.
and she went through some tough stuff, and I really wanted to see her giving herself courage and giving herself the strength to just keep on going.
Yeah. And I think, again, if you are readers, if you're looking for just a really inspirational character, as you say, I think it's this idea of keep going, just that drive that is there even in the face of some very tricky and sticky situations. But of course, she doesn't work alone. And I have to ask about Nathan Quinn.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Now tell me, um, are you fond of Nathan Quinn?
Oh, enormously so.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just wondered when you were crafting him whether, you were thinking, this is my dream guy. This is, did you pour into him almost like everything I would like, a prototype to be?
Yes, for sure. But it was also interesting because I gave them so much time to get to know each other,
Mm,
and for their, I mean, from how they begin in the Gift of Darkness to where they are in the fourth book. And for me, that was really, really interesting. And he's quite an unusual character because he has a foot in both sides of knowing goodness and also evil, and his own particular history, and also he's trying very hard to now being a prosecutor. So it's yeah, it's I, I really enjoy writing him as well,
mm,
enormously
mm,
so.
mm. forgive me for being greedy, because there's four fabulous books here, and often, you
You're
know,
so kind.
I
You're so
know,
kind.
honestly, so often I think, I mean, we are so lucky because so many people writing great stuff. But I think sometimes there's a series or a book that maybe people don't know about because there's so much other stuff out there. And and it's just like, oh, well, and yeah, but maybe I'm biased. I don't know. I just really enjoy, you know, putting myself. Well, not in all of those situations because I wouldn't want to be so scared. Um, but that sense of agency and that sense of a woman who does and who makes things happen and who decides,
I
you know,
really wanted that. I
yeah.
so wanted that, and I know that she struggled with it because it is still, a tough environment being in homicide. And I have spoken with. I was so lucky with my Seattle police contacts, and uh, I went out on ride-alongs with the most wonderful
Wow.
officers, and I met someone who is a woman in her early 50s and is a detective, a homicide detective. And it's fantastic to see the kind of gravitas that they bring to the job. They know what their job is.
Mm,
It's giving people closure at the worst times of their lives and
mhm,
dealing with the worst kind of situations,
mhm.
and still they cannot lose their soul to it. They have families.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you have these amazing women doing these amazing things, and it's just great, to be honest, to be able to pick some of the things that they say, to try to put them in the books, to try and give them a degree of reality
Mhm.
in the detail.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've consulted with Seattle police officers, and again, I think you can tell that, because of those details, that sense of, you know reality, um but I have to ask, four books in, some authors finish at a trilogy. Will there be more?
I certainly hope so. I
Yes.
am at the
Yes.
moment. I'm working on my first London thriller,
Really?
which is
Whoa. Yeah.
with just. I thought it would be a nice change,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and interesting and quite scary because I've set it very much in my kind of backyard, and so it has all kind of different um, sort of challenges, if you like.
Mhm.
But the research is a lot simpler because I just get out of my door and you know, as opposed to traveling around the world. But I think there is still a lot to say in terms of what Madison is going to do. So I'm looking forward to going back.
Wonderful, wonderful. Will you let me have a moment or two though on the London thriller? And I know you might
Sure.
not be able to give too much away, so and that's great. But will you work with a police team again, or are you going to offer us a different configuration?
No, this one has a journalist at the heart
Okay.
because I thought it's I think journalism it's incredibly important at the moment because in
Yes.
terms of truth and fake news and lies and all kinds of journalism is where we are informed about what's going on in our world.
Yeah.
And so I have someone who has found out something really, really quite dreadful, and they're trying to shut her up.
Mhm.
And again, she's someone who has to give herself the courage to carry on when, in fact, there are a lot of reasons for which it would be much, much easier to just pack up and go home and just choose
Yeah,
another story.
yeah,
But no, it's very interesting because she's not working within the same parameter of a police officer,
yeah, yeah,
but she's
yeah.
doing investigating and she's writing up a story. So she still has to find proof and witnesses and corroboration, and so it's a great place to be, really.
Yeah. And are you able to write full time now, or do you still do
But no,
the
I do, yes.
you do?
I'm writing full time. So
Ah, you
um,
don't miss the film industry.
oh, enormously, yes, I
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
I We just had the best of times working in a cutting room. I love films. I absolutely adore films, and I miss the team so much and working with a team. And it was just great because you would start seeing the film when it was nothing but rushes, so bits of scenes, sort of not cut together. It
yeah,
was just completely shapeless, and then you're the last person who leaves the film. You leave it when it's finished, when it's completed, when it has
mhm,
music and sound effects and everything, and you can watch it on the screen,
mm,
and that's just wonderful.
yeah, yeah,
And I was very lucky because I worked with the same people over and over again, so it was just a wonderful, wonderful team.
yeah. So it was. I was just thinking, again, the intensity of that and working with a team to be a writer, and even though there are times of, well, not meeting with others at the minute, but at least communicating with others.
Yes.
But it's a very solitary
Mm.
process. Is it? I mean, you've done it for into 5 books now, and other writing that you've done. But if somebody gave you the chance to go back and be part of a film team, would you do?
Where and when?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
But we're talking about 35 mil,
Mm.
so it was wonderful and physical, and you could actually hold the film up and,
Yes,
and
yeah,
look at it, and absolutely marvelous. Yes, it's a great ride. It's one of those things where you feel that you're on a mission,
mm,
and the mission is to complete the film. So it's one of the things where all sort of other things fall by the wayside because it is just so intoxicating
mm,
to work on that. And
yeah,
it is very much, when you're writing a book and you're doing your word count every day, and it's like the same thing. You have to put so many feet in the can, you have to shoot so many scenes, and you have to write so many chapters. So yeah, that's similar in that
similar
sense.
process. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so the new book, um, I know that the times that we live in don't allow for total projection, but when might it be?
Uh, couldn't tell you yet.
Yeah,
I'm hoping at some point next year.
yeah, brilliant.
So,
Like I say,
but I really stayed away from writing anything about the pandemic because I
mm,
don't think we are anywhere near being able to write about it,
yeah,
and also because I wouldn't want to read about it myself right
yeah,
now. We
yeah,
are here at the moment, so
mm,
let's not be here. Let's escape
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to
The great
someplace
magic
else.
of fiction that that would, yeah.
Yes.
Now I've got one crazy last question for you
Ooh.
that I normally ask authors. So we won't go near the new book because that's under wraps, and that's but if we go to the Madison series, and that because lockdown is uh, is a real there on the horizon again. Um, which one of your characters, if you had to choose just one from that series that you've created, you have to be locked down with one of them in the bubble. Who would it be and why? With all that you know about them, so not just their professional capabilities, everything like about the food that they eat, um, the way that they behave about things, their habits, the secrets that they have, or the demons from the past?
Well, that depends if I should end up alive still at the end of lockdown, because
It might be a good idea.
I think I could have quite a laugh with Madison
Yeah.
because our tastes are very similar.
Mm,
So we could probably eat the same food, watch the same movies.
yeah.
She would certainly have stories to tell,
Yeah.
and I think I would enjoy that time. Yes.
Brilliant. Yeah.
I thought, what about Quinn? And then I thought, no, that wouldn't work.
It's a shame. I wish you'd said you would have him, because then I could have had Madison in my bubble. But hey, it's as
Oh, well,
uh,
nothing is set in stone.
true, but it's your prerogative. They're your characters. You know. I'll take Quinn instead.
Okay, I'm happy
Yeah.
with that.
So I'm really sorry that we've got to finish now.
Oh, this was
But
such a pleasure.
oh, likewise, and like I say, I'm only sorry we've not done this sooner. Um, and I hope, that even if we cannot meet up in real life for a while, I hope that we can do this again. You know,
I'm here.
yeah, excellent, excellent.
This was a real delight, and I love how you approach talking about books, the books, a group of books. It's brilliant, and it's really entertaining, but it's also, these are different questions, and not questions that I have sort of had before, and it's great to be able to kind of think about the books as a whole, as the four of them, where they started, where they are now, and it's just great. Thank you very much.
A total pleasure. All the very best with the new book as you're
Thank you.
developing that. And see you soon.
See you soon.
Okay.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.